You are listening to the Emtech Group Podcast series, your source for trends about automated QA testing for the insurance industry.
Hey Kevin, how are you? It's good to see you, or well, talk to you.
Hey Gary, how you doing? It's good to be back with you guys.
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Counting down the days until the dog days of summer are over, but looking forward to the fall. Always love that time of year.
Yep, absolutely. It's August here in Texas, and the fall can't get here quick enough for us.
I understand that. I've been there. I know what you're talking about. So, for the sake of the audience, Kevin, it'd be fantastic if you could introduce yourself.
Yeah, happy to, Gary. It's good to be here. I'm Kevin Kelly. I run service and delivery for Emtech Group. We are a consulting firm in the life and annuity space, mainly in financial services. Prior to that, I spent about 17 years with New York Life, 11 years of that in a CIO role for one of their businesses. So I'm familiar with the insurance ecosystem. The background there, how insurance companies work, the role of quality within them. And I've been on all sides of the spectrum. I've been on the carrier side, I've been on the vendor provider side, and excited to have a conversation here.
That's fantastic. Wow, New York Life, 17 years. And you said 11 of that was the CIO.
Yeah. I sat in a divisional CIO chair for one of their lines of business for quite a while.
That's fantastic. So here's a off the cuff question. I didn't even write this down before, but what was the day in the life of a CIO at a very large insurance carrier? What was that like? Did they ever blend together, or were they so distinct?
Yeah, it was interesting, right? Because there's always there's overarching strategy stuff that kind of blends over time, but every day is a different day. There's different tactical issues going on. Sometimes they're operational challenges, sometimes it's project challenges, sometimes you're working on a strategic issue with a business. Most of my focus was actually on the business, not on the IT side. So I was responsible for technology in IT as a CIO, but I spent most of my time actually outward facing with my peers on the business side of it. So it was a lot of that, but you can never get away from the operations of the firm. So it's a big juggling act in a lot of ways every day.
Yeah, that's I think opens up kind of a couple areas I'd like to explore, because I believe a lot of people would assume a CIO is focused on the IT, and I'm not surprised personally that you were managing up and around and across, less so in the organization, which means you had your colonels and lieutenants to take care of the day-to-day, but you had to manage up and around. And I'm assuming that's because when things go bad or wrong, they go bad quickly. And so building relationships would be absolutely critical.
Yeah, absolutely. I was fortunate. I had a good leadership team, a good set of lieutenants underneath me that could deal with the day-to-day of the technology pieces. And I focused my energy with my peers, both within my division as well as the broader enterprise at large. Because an insurance company, you have IT because you need to have IT, and if you do it right, it's a strategic enabler. And QA and quality in general can be a strategic enabler as well. But fundamentally, you're trying to run a business. You're trying to run an insurance carrier. So a lot of time focused on distribution, sales, marketing, operations, operational excellence, that type of stuff. What problems are the business facing, and how can we identify solutions and deploy technology to help them address those challenges. That's the fundamental role of the CIO. And I think as far as Emtech is concerned, in the broader quality issue, that's where quality can come into play. No CEO wakes up in the morning thinking that they need to go address a quality problem,
Right.
or they need to go invest in QA automation. They're not thinking about that. The CEO, the COO, the CFO, the CIO, the executives wake up and they're thinking about, how can I grow my business? How can I enable sales or distribution? Or on the operations side, how can I achieve better operational excellence? And how can I get better, process automation, better throughput, more widgets per hour, that type
Right.
of stuff. So
Yeah.
that's what as executives wake up thinking about, and that's what we lose sleep over. But that's also where QA can come in and play a big role in helping to solve some of those fundamental challenges.
Right. From a strategic perspective, QA generally within IT or within organizations is not a core competence. However, it is an enabler, right? So if we connect those two dots, strategic enablement, it might be redheaded stepchild in some regards, but it's expected or understood that it's necessary, right? Quality is expected. It's a desired outcome. So how did you navigate that over your career? Because as you said, people don't expect it. They expect the outcome, but they don't get up in the morning and go, oh, gee, I need something, until their hair's on fire, right? And then by then it's a little bit late, ironically, pun intended, to buy insurance when your house is on fire. So how did you navigate that?
So in my experience, Gary, you need to find kind of what is the burning platform, and what is the organization really focused on. And different organizations at different phases in their growth cycle can be focused on different things. Sometimes they're laser focused on distribution and growth, or organic growth. Sometimes they're focused on inorganic growth, maybe through an M&A activity. Other times, maybe in a period of economic contraction, they focus more on operational excellence and trying to get better margins out of what they have. So in my experience, you would, depending on where the organization was in the various economic and growth cycles, you try to identify the top, 2 or 3 things that are actually moving the needle for the organization at that particular point in time, and focus your technology strategy in general, and QA and quality is a piece of that, and a very important piece, but around whatever is going to move the needle for the organization at that point in time, and try to align the tech strategy with the business strategy, because we are not here as technologists. We like to think about the new technologies and how can we apply them, and how can we deploy them in our organization. But it's not about the technology. It's really about the business and what the business is trying to achieve. So you have to get your technology strategy aligned and lockstep, laser focus with that business strategy. And then the QA focus comes right along with that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, especially for the point about IT is an enabler to the business strategy, right? It's how things get done, and it's certainly the area that's going to get the attention when growth is encumbered because of problems, either from an application bug, for lack of a better word, defect, I think is the appropriate word today. And then with respect to growth, driving growth, that's measured via policies per hour. Is that right? And applications per hour, policies per day. So if the IT organization systems, the back end, can't support and deliver that applications per hour, policies per day metric, is that how growth would be measured?
Yeah, the operational metrics are a little bit different depending on which part of the organization you're in, but certainly for new business growth and new business sales, there are obviously annual goals that get broken down into monthly goals from a top line revenue perspective. And then that, of course, then gets broken down into, okay, if our top line revenue target is X, what do I need to be doing on a daily basis to achieve that? And everything is focused around that. And not only is it about, okay, once the application from an insurance, so you get an insurance app in-house, either, some people still have manual paper apps, but a lot of stuff, of course, is e-app these days. But not only like when it's in-house, how do you do it? But you're looking 2 or 3 months down the line from a distribution standpoint, and how are you going to generate that future distribution pipeline, and how are you going to get sales coming in the future? So it's not only about what's happening today, it's how are you enabling your field force to sell tomorrow and next week and next month.
Now, if I drill down into some detail on that, you mentioned the word pipeline, so I'm going to think of that slightly different. The pipeline I'm looking at or thinking of is from an application through underwriting, that decisioning process, all the way into issuance of a policy, all of that gobbledygook. The compliance around that. There's a fair amount of data in the application. The data itself is it correct to say output from one system as an input to another system and then processed through? Is that correct to say? And is that not an area where a lot of challenges, errors can occur?
Yeah, it is, Gary. So say you're going to buy a relatively, even if it's a relatively simple product that you're going to go buy. There are multiple phases that you go through. There are multiple processes that the policyholder that's applying for the product is going through, that the agent or the distribution channel is going through. You typically have a system for the e-app, the electronic application, that oftentimes is filled out by the end policyholder, the end consumer. Sometimes it's completed by the agent, and that can vary a little bit depending on what channel the business is coming through. Is it direct to consumer? Is it coming through a captive agent? Is it a bank or broker dealer type channel? So there can be some variations, and there's different platforms that originate the business that typically then comes through an integration type mechanism into the carrier, where it then goes through an underwriting process. It might go into some underwriting engine or rules engine. What requirements are necessary to do to underwrite the business? Does it require medical records? Does it require all of that type of stuff for the underwriters to make their decision? And then once you get all of the requirements fulfilled, so now you have all the information to be able to do the underwriting, then how does that occur? Does it need to go through a full medical underwriting? Does a human underwriter need to actually look at it? Does it go through some type of rules engine and get some scoring and weighting applied to it? And then, some of the sophisticated carriers are actually kind of doing some automatic underwriting on the simpler policies. And sometimes even if a human being is going to look at it, the systems will give a weighting and a scoring to kind of give the underwriter, the system's opinion on what it should be. So you might still have a human being making the decision or validating the inputs that are coming out of the underwriting engine, but we try as much as we can to automate and streamline the flow. And so quality becomes really critical in these, not only the quality of the integrations between these different systems, but the more and more that we as insurance carriers try to automate this stuff, do we automate the right thing? Are we getting the right output? Are we getting the right outcome? And so QA becomes a really critical driver on all of that stuff.
So if I were to, I'm going to make a statement, and I believe it to be correct, but it sounds like because of the desire for digitization and all the benefits that come from that in terms of time to market for product launches and what have you, if the QA process is not automated for that data, that flow of data from system to system. So if one thing is wrong, the data file is incomplete or inaccurate in either dimension, that seems like it could be a whole world of hurt to that downstream process.
Yeah, it is a whole world of hurt to the downstream process, but even worse than that, Gary. So, it's a really bad day if on these front end systems, if you have something in front of a policy holder or an agent and it's wrong, you don't want to have to go back to your agent, your distribution, your sales team. And most importantly, you don't want to have to go back to the end consumer, the policy holder that's trying to buy product from you and tell them that you had a problem in your system. That a product wasn't configured correctly, or there was an option that they selected that they shouldn't have been able to select. So yes, it can gum up the works downstream, but most importantly, you don't want to gum up the works upstream because it's not just that one policy. It becomes a brand issue, reputational issue. If you mess that up, clearly you messed it up for that one consumer, but more importantly, for your distribution channel, you want to be easy to do business with, easy to work with, and have high quality and expected outcomes for the insurance agents themselves. And if you don't, you can create some brain damage very quickly.
I appreciate that. Sounds like we're kind of getting towards the end of it, of our conversation, but there's so many different ways I could drill in, because that seems to be an area that is critical, right? While people validate multiple parts of the system or systems across the business flows, there's not a feasible, simplistic way of getting into the details like that. I could drill in that all day long. It's like we should have another conversation maybe, and then we can drill into some of the other aspects of that. And but in parting, I think we have a couple minutes. Is there one piece of advice that you would offer a fellow CIO of an insurance carrier, small, mid-size? New York Life obviously is larger; they had resources, but a lot of the smaller, mid-size firms don't have the resourcing, so they need to kind of play player coach, perhaps. But is there a piece of advice you'd give them?
Yes. It's a good question, Gary. The one thing I might say to people that sit in that role, and not just the CIOs, but even the operational executives, COO type of folks, talk about technology, and we talk about how can technology be a strategic enabler to the business. And those are good and appropriate conversations. We should be talking about that as well. But how do you enable technology? And I think a lot of times, IT executives in general, we know that we need to do testing. We know that we need to do QA, but sometimes it maybe not an afterthought, but it's something on the back end of the process, right? It's a necessary evil that we do. But I believe if you do it correctly, and we use the phrase shift left a little bit, but quality in QA can be a strategic enabler to the IT function and therefore to the overall enterprise. My advice to executives, whether they're operational or technology executives, would be how do you build quality into the process, right? And it's not about software testing. It's not necessarily about automation. It's a mindset. How do you get a quality-oriented mindset and build it into your product development process, your delivery process, your operational processes, and how do you really make that a core competency? Because if you do quality well, it's going to show up. You're going to see better growth. On your sales and distribution side, you're going to see better turnaround times. We talked about how many apps per day and hour and stuff like that. You get better operational excellence when you can drive all of the bugs and all of the kinks out of the system. It's a different mindset and a different discipline, different way to think about it.
That's great. Listen, I appreciate taking the time, Kevin. It's always a pleasure. And we'll have to do this again.
Absolutely. My pleasure, Gary. Thank you.